Hello, I'm Sweet June. I'm back. I'm doing a series. Um, I think it's going to be tips for single mothers. I think it's going to be in um, 4 parts. I'm not sure because I have a lot of tips and I wrote them down and I'm going to talk about each tip as I go through. So this is tips for single mothers, part two. Like I said, this is very dear to me, this topic, because I spent many years being a single mom, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot of things along the way as a single mother. So now I'm here to share um, some vital tips um, for young single mothers. Something that they can meditate on and marinate on, and maybe they could, use some of these tips. I mean, they're good tips, things that I learned over the years, that I realized over the years, things that I've learned through trial and error, and just through years of being a single mother and getting wiser and just learning a lot of things. So I think these are tips that the young single mothers can use. Been looking at a lot of testimonies on here for young single mothers, and a lot of them they're struggling in various different ways. And like I said, I love to give them encouragement. I really enjoy giving them the encouragement. So this is um, some good tips. As far as I'm concerned, they're pretty good tips that um, something that they can, marinate on, and you guys can marinate on, and give you some food for thought, something to think about, something to consider while you're raising your children. Anyway, it's gonna be. I'm gonna try to do it in 4 parts. I think it's gonna wind up being in 4 parts. So just bear with me, but because I wrote down a lot of them. Okay, tip number 2. Um, Never bad mouth the father of your children around to your children or around them. Not a good idea. If you have kids and you things didn't work out between you and the father, and you guys kind of broke up on a bad note or whatever, or you trying to figure out the co-parenting situation. That's not an easy thing to try to figure out. And sometimes, a lot of times, men they don't know how to. To be honest, I think a lot of times men don't know how to co-parent. They just don't know how to do it. I mean, they just don't know how to do it. And so, you have to look at what's in the best interest of the child. I'm coming to that though, coming to that part. But the important thing is do not badmouth the father um, of your child, no matter how bad the situation is, no matter how much how angry you are at him, or no matter what the situation is. I mean, he could have walked out on you or whatever. um, it doesn't matter how bad the situation is. You should never badmouth him to that child or in front of that child, because that can be very detrimental on the child emotionally and mentally. Particularly if it's a male child. Particularly if it's a male child, that's not good. It's just not good to do that, because they look at it in terms of you bad mouthing them, because that father is, like it or not, is a part of your child. He's a part of you, but he's also a part of his father too. So not a good idea. Not a good idea to do that. Um, Tip number 3: try to encourage the father of your child to be an active part in the child's life as much as possible. I remember when my oldest son was younger, me and his dad was together for a little while, and although I contemplated on marrying him, he had asked me. I don't know whether it was serious or not. He said he was, but I just didn't think he would be a good husband or good father material, so I just didn't go through with it, because I just didn't think he would. Not bashing him, but I didn't think he would be a good husband or a good father. Um, so, we wanted up parting ways. Um, and I tried to do whatever I could to get him to be an active part of my oldest son's life. I mean, he was kind of halfway there, kind of um, not really there like he should have been. I mean, he was there, but he wasn't there like he should have been. And so I tried to really encourage him to be an active part. And I think for a minute there, he resented the fact that I broke up with him. And he kind of used that as an excuse. And I told him, I said, that has nothing to do with our son. I mean, our son needed, and I drove the point close to home to him that our son needed him, and he did. And a lot was lacking over the years because of the fact that he really wasn't there like he should have been. Because my oldest, he might have had a attention deficit. I never got him tested, but he always had a hard time focusing in school. He just couldn't focus. I always had to pop up to the school and check on him, and he just couldn't focus. I don't know what the problem was. Could have had attention deficit, but I didn't have him tested. So, but he winded up not graduating from high school, and he winded up having to get his GED because he just couldn't stay focused in school. And his father was not he didn't have an active role in his life like he should have. And so there was some things that was lacking there. I think that if he had a more of an active role in my oldest son's life, then my oldest son might have would have graduated from high school. Not putting all the blame on him or anything, but I'm just saying that I tried to encourage him to have more of an active role in my oldest son's life, and he kind of didn't. He kind of didn't have an active role, and kind of wasn't there like he should have been. So, but at the end of the day, you can't make somebody do something that they don't want to do. Um, but encourage them as much as possible. Um, don't force them. I mean, because you can't force them. I mean, they're a grown man. You can't make them do something they don't want to do. But let them know that, like I said, you got to look at what's in the best interest of your child. And if you love your child and you want what's best for your child, then you're gonna want not just you to be in the child's life, but you're gonna want that father to be an active part of that child's life as well. So definitely try to encourage the father to be an active part of the child's life. That was tip number 3. Tip number 4 is never try to keep the other parents away from the child. That is a no-no. That is a no-no. You never, ever, ever try to keep the father away from the child. The only time where you it's okay to do that is if the father poses a physical threat to you or that child. If he was abusive in a relationship and you're trying to get away from him, and then that's different. That's a totally different situation. But if that father poses no threat, if he poses no threat to you, he poses no threat to the child, and he really does want to be in that child's, particularly if he expresses a strong interest in being in that child's life, there is no reason for you to keep that child away from their father. I mean, some women be tripping, and they resent the father for whatever reason, and they try to keep them out of the child's life, or they might think they're not getting enough child support or financial support from the father. Out of resentment, they will try to keep him away from the child, the father away from the child. That is never a good idea. I think when women do that, they're being very selfish. They're being very selfish, and they're not thinking about what's in the best interest of the child. Remember, you got to always think about what's in the best interest of your child. At the end of the day, it's not about you. It's not about you. It's not about how you feel about the father. Put your feelings about the father aside and think about what's best for your child. Um, and you got to think about what's best for your child. If you love your child, then you got to think about what's best for that child. And what's best for the child is for that child to have both parents in their life as much as possible. Like I said, the only way that that's acceptable is if that other parent is um, posing a threat to you or your child and your child, Or if their lifestyle is questionable, maybe if they're on drugs or something like that. No, I guess you then in that case you wouldn't want your child around them. But if he's a decent person and he has no drug issues or any legal issues or anything like that, he doesn't pose a threat to you and your child. He expresses, particularly if he expresses an interest to be in that child's life, then there's no reason for you to keep the father away. Some women do it because they resent the father for whatever reason, or they're angry with the father for whatever reason, and they do it out of spite. That's a no-no. Never, ever, ever. At the end, like I said, it's not about your feelings and how you feel, and it's very immature for women to do that. So, tip number 4: never do that, um, unless, like I said, if there's a threat or whatever, extenuating circumstances. Tip number 5: never bring too many. Now, this is a very important tip. Listen, never bring too many men around your children. It's a bad idea to bring too many men around your children. I remember when before I started started studying with the witnesses and I was kind of out in the world. um, I didn't have that many men around my kids, but I did have, some. I didn't have that many, but um, and then I decided to become celibate because I thought about that. I said, well, I don't want my sons to be exposing my sons I don't want them to be, I thought about that and I said, I don't want them to be seeing me with different men or dating different men. And it's just not, I thought about that and I said, that's going to be, they were very impressionable. My oldest was very impressionable and I just didn't want to expose them to that. And so as a mother, you have to really, really be careful. Um, it's detrimental for boys to see that because when boys see different men's, um, um, it's particularly in and out of your life, then that just tells them, it messes with their respect for women, and it messes with their overall respect for women. It lets them know that that's the way women should be treated. Women should always be treated with the utmost respect at all times. If you want to send that message to your sons, but if you got different men coming in and out of your life, and they see that and they're exposed to that, then it sends the wrong message to your sons. With daughters, it sends the wrong message to them that it's okay to be with multiple men. So it both males and females, it just sends a very, very bad message. So you really don't want to expose your children to too many different. Try to keep your dating to a minimum as much as possible. And then if you do find somebody that you really like, get to know them really, really well first before you decide to introduce them to your children. You guys can meet in other places and all that kind of stuff. Really take the time to get to know the guy before you introduce them to your children, and make sure that this is somebody that you may potentially want a future with before you even introduce them to your children. And so that's very important and that's very vital. Um, it's just not a good idea to expose children to different people, like that. And it confuses them. It sends a bad message to them. It to the young men. It just to the young boys. It can also make them not have a lot of respect for women growing up. For girls, it can send a message that it's okay for them to be with various different guys. It just sends a bad message all the way around. It's just not good on them mentally, spiritually, or emotionally. So yeah, just be very careful about that. Tip number 6: teach children godly principles. This is scriptural. Um, the Bible says, "Teach a child in the way they should go, and they should never depart. They will never depart from it." Make sure that you teach the child. Not only take them to spiritual to your church or whatever that you go to, whatever, but also read and study the Bible with your children as well. Introduce them to the Bible, but do take baby steps, and pray with your children, um, and teach them godly concepts. Teach them um, you know godly concepts and everything like that, because they're going to need to know that. It will be good that they have that good strong spiritual foundation. They're going to need it. Um, Tip number 7: keep a balance of work and home life. This is very important. Um, your children need you. Your children really, really need you. And I know when I was raising my kids, um, these jobs will try to work you. These jobs don't care. They will try to run you in the ground. But that's where you got to put your foot down, and you got to not be trying to do all this overtime and all this kind of stuff. First of all, it's going to physically wear you out to where you're going to be so tired to even be enjoy your kids and be around your kids or whatever. So that's not good for you, and it's not good for your children because your children need you. You got to remember that you're the only parent that those kids have, that's in their life most of the time. So your children do need you, and at the end of the day, um, children grow so fast. They grow so fast, and you really need to enjoy them while they're little because when they get older, they become different people and they're not really the same people when they get older. And so you really, really should enjoy them while they're little and take the time to, like I say, teach them godly principles, spend time with them, read with them, all that, help them with their homework and stuff like that. And you need time to do all those things. And so if you're so busy working, you ain't got time to do all those things with your children. So that's very vital. And your children need you. They really do need you. They need you more than material things. They need you more than money. You may be struggling financially and may feel like you need to work a few extra hours, but just be very careful because it didn't matter if I worked 40 or 45 hours, I was still broke. So, um, my thought is that I didn't want to be working so much to the point to where I missed time, so took so much a lot of time away from my kids, and so you gotta have that work home life balance. It's very important to have that work home life balance because it's very vital. Your children really do need you, particularly if that other parent is not there. If that father is not there, um, if the fathers are not present in the children's life um, on a regular basis, it's very really vital that you're there for them and they really need you. And so it's nothing wrong with working a 40-hour work week or less, you know, because like I say, they grow super fast. Trust and believe what I say. They go really fast, and then you don't want to look up when they're 18 and say, where did the time go? Oh, and have all these regrets and say, oh, I wish I could have did this and that and this and that and the other. I know when my youngest son, see, my oldest son, I was able to stay home with him a year after he was born and really get that bond with him and stuff. And my youngest son, I wasn't able to do that. Do you know I still regret that? He's almost 18 years old, and I still regret not being able to be home with him more when he was a baby, because when he was a baby, I had to go back to work when he was 6 weeks old. Do you know I still regret that? So that's what I'm saying. If you're working so much and you look up and your child is 18, you're gonna have regrets. You're gonna have regrets that you didn't spend that vital time with your children. That time with your children is precious, very precious. Take the time to do things. I know I took my kids to Los Angeles. Oh my God, they really enjoyed it. We went to Chicago. We went to Cedar Point, and I look back at that stuff, and I mean, it's those memories are priceless because I took the time to actually do things with my kids. I used to take my son to the Y Center because that was when my youngest son, that was when he used to really be into basketball. And I used to take him to the Y Center and I used to shoot hoops with him. And I think back to those times, and it was a really precious time. And I'm glad that I took the time to do those things with him. And so it's very important to have that work and home life balance and not be working so much to the point to where you won't have time for your kids. Your children really do need you, and you need to be able to watch them grow up because they grow super fast, and once they become adults, they become different people. So I'm gonna wrap this video up. This is single mother tips video number 2. I got number 3 coming. I'm only on number 7. Mind you, I got 18 of them. Okay, so like I said, guys, bear with me. Stay tuned. I got some more single mother tips coming up. Okay, like and subscribe. This is Sweet Jen.